Why is he asking me to do this? I've never given a presentation like this before. I'm not sure I can have a good quality presentation by Tuesday. I hope what I'm saying is clear for everybody. I didn't have much time to study this week, and I just hope I'm not messing this up. I've really got to get this video out. If I don't do at least one YouTube video a week, I'll never be blessed by the YouTube algorithm.
Be strong.
Grace and peace to you. I'm Pastor Vaughn, and this is the Work It Out podcast, where I answer everyday questions from a biblical perspective so that you can be strong and courageous in living out your faith. Have you ever heard of imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is considered to be an internal belief that you're not as competent as other people think you are. Imposter syndrome is the feeling that you're a phony, or you feel like at any minute you will be discovered as a fraud. This isn't like humility. It's actually an irrational state of paranoia that causes us to think that we're less than ourselves. I personally sometimes experience this, and I wanted to share this in case you might struggle with it as well. It's estimated that 70% of people experience at least one episode of imposter syndrome at one time or another. There are feelings of inadequacy, incompetence, and fraudulence despite having success in various areas of your life. This affects many people, from CEOs to freshmen in high school. No matter what your social status, or your work background, skill level, or expertise is. Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook, has admitted to struggling with imposter syndrome herself. And she said this in one of her books: "Every time I was called on in class, I was sure that I was about to embarrass myself. Every time I took a test, I was sure that it had gone badly. And every time I didn't embarrass myself or even excelled, I believed that it was that I fooled everyone yet again. One day soon, the jig would be up." Can you imagine that? Just the amount of stress that will build up over time worrying about these things. So what are some signs of imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is often associated with generalized anxiety disorder and social anxiety disorder. There is some self-doubt about the past, present, future experiences. When you achieve success, you might say it's luck or a fluke. You look for validation from people around you as a measure of success. So what causes imposter syndrome? Personality traits are a big one. I'm a type 1 in the Enneagram, which is a perfectionist. So I definitely struggle with this from time to time. Well, all the time, really. For me, I'm never satisfied with the work that I do. I tend to over-prepare or work harder than I should just to make sure that I know what or at least look like I know what I'm doing. I often put myself in a vicious cycle of thinking that the only reason I've done well on a sermon or presentation is because I stayed up all night researching and rehearsing. While I may have done well, I'm typically focused on my flaws and my mistakes. To be honest, it really feels dumb that I put so much pressure on myself. I'm in a feedback group with others where we review each other's YouTube videos and provide constructive feedback. After talking about all the things that I thought I did wrong in one of my videos, most of the people admitted that they didn't even notice any of the things that I brought up. Another cause of imposter syndrome is families that value achievement more than anything else. So these types of families, they're not very supportive, and they typically have a lot of conflict, and they just needle in on what's going wrong. Another cause is entering a new role can also trigger this imposter syndrome, something like entering college or starting a new job. Unfortunately, this feeling can affect us deeply as Christians if we're not careful. Have you ever walked into a church and looked around thinking that everyone has got their stuff together except for you? Everyone looks like they belong. They seem to have this Christian life all figured out, and it comes easy to them. Let me share with you 3 biblical truths that will help you deal with these feelings of imposter syndrome. Firstly, you're not fake, you're holy. Even though you look around and think everyone is more holy or sanctified, the reality is that we are all still sinners. Romans 3:23 says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. They are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Jesus Christ. The Bible is realistic about how sin continues to be present in our lives. We don't get rid of our sin nature when we come to Christ. Even though sin is still there, that is not who we are in Christ. Paul puts it this way in Galatians 2:20. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Also in 2 Corinthians 5:17, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away, and see, the new has come. It's because of this that Christ is continually making us more and more like him. Second, God chose you. Romans 8:28 and through 30 says, for those he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, so that he would be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. And those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he also justified. And those he justified, he also glorified. We know that all these things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. Without going down a theological rabbit hole, this is one of the verses that stays to the top of my mind. This has smashed the thoughts of being an imposter. I meet a lot of people who have amazing stories about how they came to Christ. Some who have suffered huge consequences for making that very decision. They might have lost their jobs or lost their family and friends. But on the other hand, I grew up in a Christian family. When I decided to follow Jesus and to be baptized as a teenager, people were happy. They were supportive. But here's the thing. That doesn't make me a JV Christian. I'm not a Christian today because I chose God or because it was a foregone conclusion of being in a Christian family. No, I'm a Christian because God chose me. Christ chose to die for me, and he decided to pay my sin debt. It wasn't random. It wasn't by chance, and it wasn't luck. It was an intentional act of mercy, grace, and love. Romans 5:8 says, but God proves his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. I hope that gives you an encouragement in the same way that it does for me. I've got one more biblical truth that will help you deal with these feelings of imposter syndrome. But before I share this final thought, if you found this video to be valuable to you, won't you bless the like button and hit subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes like this. Lastly, what has really helped me as I deal with imposter syndrome is to focus on Christ. All these feelings of inadequacy are all about me. I'm looking around and comparing myself with other people, and I'm thinking about what I can do in my own strength. 1 John 4:4 says, you are from God, little children, and you have conquered them, because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world. Oh, that's good. That's good stuff. Man, can I drop the mic right there? Can I just drop it? When we look to Christ, we have a perfect peace for the present and the future. I get confidence from the fact that when I submit to Christ, it's Christ in me that is doing the work. As I follow him, he is making me more and more like him, and I'm being conformed to his image. 3 John 1:11 tells us not to imitate evil, but to imitate good. And we're not perfect, but we should focus on Christ and imitate him. Do you think you suffer from imposter syndrome? If so, let me know down in the comments how you handle it. Also, if there's any way that I can be praying for you, please let me know down in the comments as well. I'd love to be praying for this small yet growing community. While you're there, don't forget to bless the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. That lets YouTube know that this content has been helpful for you so that they can show it to others. So remember, you are not an imposter because you're holy and God chose you. So just focus on Jesus and imitate him. God bless you, and I hope that you will be strong and courageous in living out your faith today.